Hello, and welcome to the Daily 15. Today, I'm excited to talk to you about a topic that I have really dug into, and it's changing the way that I approach my goals, and I'm thinking it might be helpful for you today. So, have you ever set a goal, and no matter what you do, no matter how hard you try, no matter how much you plan, how much you write down, how much you commit to doing this thing, somehow it just doesn't get done. And it leaves you frustrated. It leaves you either loudly or quietly just giving up. Maybe you have a goal to run every single day. But maybe it's January and you live somewhere really cold. So maybe there's piles of snow outside and it's 30 below. There's no way that you're going to be running outside in January. You'll never reach that goal. But what if you started that goal in early spring? When the snow is gone, when the mornings are crisp and cool, but not cold, and the leaves are beginning to bud on the trees. Doesn't that make it so much easier to accomplish that goal? To want to get outside and run? Maybe not for all of us. I'm not a runner. But sometimes the reason that our goals are not working, the reason that we're frustrated with them and that we end up giving up in them is because they're not in the right season. Now, we can think of seasons as the changing of the weather. But there's also seasons in our life. There's seasons when we have lots of room in our schedule, or at least a little more breathing room. There's also times when we are just barely hanging on by a thread, and we're really not sure how we're going to make it through the next day. And then there are other days kind of in the in-between where things are moving along, we found a routine, we found a rhythm that works, and things are good. So today, we're going to talk about seasons. We're going to talk about the seasons that we go through, how to identify which season you're actually living in, time to be honest, not the one you want to live in right now, but the one you're living in, and looking at the goals that you've set to make sure that they're in alignment with that season. That is going to give you the best opportunity to actually accomplish that goal, maybe for the first time, or at least make some progress on it. Are you ready? Welcome to the Daily 15, where we create margin for what matters most, and we're doing it in just 15 minutes a day. So these seasons that we go through, I did this. This running example is kind of close to home. I am not a runner. I will never be a runner. But I understand that moving my body is important, that I need to do it for my health, for my longevity, and I prefer to walk. So when I'm scrolling social media a few years ago and I see a challenge to do 40 miles in 40 days, I think, why not? Let's sign up. This should be easy. I get a free t-shirt. I get a medal. Cool. Here was the problem. It was January. We lived in Minnesota at the time. And that winter, we got 100 inches of snow. There was snow everywhere. We had snow piles in our front yard that were taller than my son at the time. It was crazy. And it was extremely cold. And I didn't have a treadmill. That particular challenge didn't require you to be outside, but I had no way to accomplish this goal. So of course, by the middle of January, I had just quietly moved along and let it go. And maybe that's how you're feeling now that we're in the middle of January and you had this goal that you were really excited about. But maybe it's just not the right season for you, and that's okay. So what are these seasons? I think that in our lives, we have three kind of seasons that we move in and out of over the years. Sometimes we're in what I call survival mode. If you have a brand new baby, that's survival mode. You're just doing what you have to do to get through each moment of each day and make sure that everybody stays alive. Or maybe your kids are a little older and now you're caring for an aging parent. I spoke with a woman recently that wanted some help with her goals, but the reality was she was definitely living in survival mode. Single mom, raising her son in middle school, working 3 jobs, just trying to make ends meet. And she had just recently moved in her ailing grandmother. This woman is a saint, truly. Precious woman. But what I had to offer was not what she needed in that moment. She didn't need to be thinking about goals. She needed to be thinking about what her body needed, what her heart and her mind needed. That was not the time for big goals and trying to get a new job and try this and add this health goal. That was not the time. Now, I do believe that there is space in survival mode for tiny goals, for daily habits that help take care of us, that help take care of the people that we love the most. But survival mode is not the time for those big, hairy, scary, massive growth goals. So you may be in survival mode today. But maybe you're thinking, no, that doesn't look like my life today. Maybe you're in maintenance mode. Doesn't that sound great? I think that sounds amazing. It seems like life is just rolling along. You've found good routines and rhythms for yourself, for your family, for your work. And you have a little bit of room for some goals. But you're not in big, hairy, scary goal territory. And that's okay. Maintenance actually is a beautiful place. And most of us, I think, spend most of our time here, where we're making those incremental changes, the small goals. But the problem is we get to January and we want big, giant goals all the time. There's so much pressure, internal and external, to hit it hard, to grow, to be amazing. And we forget that we could be amazing in maintenance mode. And that maintenance mode can be amazing for us because that's when we're dialing in those rhythms that we have found that actually are working, that are making life easier, that are, giving us a little bit of breathing room. But then there are times when we're going to be in growth mode. Maybe that's in the transition when you've sent your kids off to college and all of a sudden you have extra time because you're not having those daily responsibilities of taking care of your kids and your household. Maybe you're ready to take the next step in building a business or writing a book or going back to school and learning something new so that you can get that next promotion at work. In growth mode, you've got space to breathe and you can chase those bigger goals. But the hardest part is getting honest about which space we're in, which season we're actually living in. That's the hard part because we want to always have big goals and always be chasing. That's why we are who we are. That's why we're busy moms and we're working and we're trying to do all the things and do them exceptionally well. But when we take a pause and we get honest about what season we're actually in, then we start to get stuff in alignment. We can start to build habits. We can start to have goals that actually fit. I usually refer to it as the square peg and the round hole. We want to make it work. We're going to figure out how to work. We're going to shave off edges. Instead of taking a step back and saying, okay, maybe this big goal doesn't work in this season, but maybe a piece of that goal that still moves the needle forward will fit in this current season. So you have to know your season. And it's hard. It's hard to be honest about what that season really looks like. But there's so much freedom when you just claim the one that you're in, knowing that you're not going to be there forever. No one stays in that season forever. It ebbs and it flows just like the rest of life. And sometimes mid-season it's going to change. You may be just cruising along and then all of a sudden you get that big promotion and you're like, okay, I've got some breathing room now. And sometimes you're in growth mode and you find out that you have a baby coming. And you have to press the brake and you have to take a moment and you have to pause. And you have to be flexible and adjust. And that's okay. But the other thing about seasons is sometimes they make us comfortable. And not just maintenance mode. Sometimes we get comfortable in survival mode too. Sometimes we feel that internal nudge that it's time to take a step and a bigger step. But we're kind of comfortable. We feel safe where we are. We don't really want to rock the boat. We don't want to mess up this flow that we've got going. So part of knowing your season and being honest about it is also being honest when that season changes and it's time for your goals to change. And it's not easy. Because listen, as much as we like to drive and we like to push ourselves and we like to grow and challenge ourselves and achieve, sometimes that next step is a little scary. And sometimes part of the process is being honest about the fact that the season has changed and it's time for you to make a change. But I know you can do it because you're here. You've shown up to learn about the seasons and to learn a better way for your own life. So what do you do with this? Well, you know I love my 15-minute challenges because that's the whole point. We don't have hours and hours and hours to spend, but we do have 15 minutes that we can carve out. So, your daily 15 challenge for this week is grab your 15 minutes and a cup of coffee and spend a little time thinking about what season you're actually in. Do a little gut check and ask yourself, am I just hanging on by a thread? Is this really just survival mode? Am I in maintenance mode? Are things leveling out a little bit and I feel like we can breathe and things are rolling along because we found the rhythms that we needed in this season? Or maybe you are in growth mode and you've got margin and you're ready to use it and you're ready to do something big and bold. And maybe it's time for a change. Maybe your season has changed and you're not ready yet. I want to challenge you to really think about it. Pick what season you're in, and then take a look at the goals that you set in January. Do they make sense? Do they still fit, even 2 weeks, 3 weeks in? Give yourself the grace to know it's okay to change. It's okay to be flexible. Goals are not carved in stone, and they're intended to help us become the women that we want to be, to help us live better, to help us live longer, to help us to show up in the spaces that we are required to show up in as the best version of ourselves. So that's your challenge for today. Learn your season, make sure your goals are in alignment with that, and make the small changes that you need to make. I'm so glad that you've been here and spent time with me today. I hope that you found this helpful. Please feel free to share this if you know another amazing woman who needs some encouragement, who needs help creating margin for what matters most. I'm Suzanne, and this is the Daily 15. I can't wait to be with you next week.